Welcome to the U.S. Great News Channel. Watch the video to the end for current and breaking news about the Russian war in Ukraine. While Ukraine has left the difficult days behind in the Russian crisis, quite important hot conflicts continue to occur. While the Russian army is trying to put the Ukrainian people and army through difficult situations by conducting various airstrikes, the Ukrainian army has continued to resist with its strength. The Ukrainian army is also actively conducting defense in the Kherson region and conducting some offensive operations. For this reason, the Ukrainian army, which is fighting a serious fight against the Russian army, is actively deployed in the Kherson region, according to a statement made by Ukrainian Defense Minister Maliar. As it happens, the Russian army is starting to strain. The internal turmoil taking place in Russia and the active defense of the Ukrainian army are almost infuriating Russia. The worst and saddest part of the war, of course, is that you are most affected by the war as children. As is known, the Russian army entered the Donbass region of Ukraine with tanks on February 24, 2022. In this regard, Turkey has a very serious project for children known as war victims in the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Turkey has added a new one to the successful diplomatic work it has decisively carried out between Russia and Ukraine. Recently, the Estonian government decided to send a new package of military assistance to Ukraine. European Pravda writes that Defense Minister Hanno Pevkur informed about the issue. The assistance consists mainly of individual equipment of the Ukrainian army. We continue to support Ukraine, and today we approved a new aid package for Ukrainian servicemen. The aid package mostly contains individual devices because the Ukrainians asked us for it, he said. According to the minister's statement, the new package includes winter outdoor clothing, personal protective equipment, and unmanned aerial vehicles. Pevkur did not disclose the cost of October military assistance to Ukraine. But the head of the Ministry of Defense of the Baltic states added that since the beginning of Russia's massive offensive, Estonia has provided more than €1 billion in military assistance to Ukraine. Previously, the hygiene and laundry system of the Ukrainian army had been transferred to Ukraine from Estonia. It consists of 3 vehicles and can serve 500 soldiers per week. The system can be transported, hidden from the enemy, and deployed separately. It was announced that the governments of Estonia, the Netherlands, and Norway have agreed to transfer an October Roll 2 mobile hospital to Ukraine. The mobile hospital itself supplies supplies to Estonia, Norway, and the Netherlands, but these financed the field hospital used by the armed forces of Ukraine. The cooperation between the 3 countries includes the purchase of container ships and trailers, plumbing decking, warehouse, and residential modules. It also covers the purchase of medical supplies for the modernization of the Roll 2 mobile hospital, which will be donated to Ukraine. The Russian invasion, which has been cited as one of the bloodiest invasions in recent years, continues despite the fact that many Ukrainian civilians have been brutally harmed by Russia. At this point, it is known that the Ukrainian army also took action in September to protect its territory. It is now known that attacks have been launched against the Russian army in every region on the basis of Ukraine, and the balance sheet of the war has also begun to appear. While it is stated that Ukraine has liberated its territories in many regions up to its borders, it is also known that it has harmed the enemy many times. Here are all the curious details of the latest developments in the Ukraine-Russia war. Ukraine, which has started attacks in many parts of the country in order to protect its territory by turning the barrels to the Russian army since September, has now also begun to explain the balance sheet of the war. At this point, it was also revealed exactly how many times Ukraine, which has increased bombing operations in southern settlements, has clashed. According to the latest data obtained, the Ukrainian army has performed 150 firing missions in order to hit Russian targets thanks to the missile and artillery units transferred by the Ukrainian Defense Forces at the southern operational point of the country. At this point, many people have once again seen how insistent Ukraine will be on taking back its territory with the counterattacks made. Currently, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine has announced what kind of war is continuing, while the words on behalf of the General Staff of Ukraine have stated that clashes are increasing in the southern regions. At this point, an article was shared by the presidency in order to inform the public. In the recent statements made by the General Staff of Ukraine to inform the public, more than 150 gas-fired missions were carried out by our missile and artillery units simultaneously in their operations tonight. The enemy army suffers losses in the southern part as well as in the eastern part of Ukraine, statements were used. While it was known that the violence of the war had increased throughout Ukraine in recent days, it was also known that weapons were constantly being fired at many settlements. At this point, in the statements made by the command, it was stated that they are continuing to work on destroying more controlled and strategic areas where there are no significant changes in the southern regions. In recent statements made by the Ukrainian Defense Forces, it was stated that communication positions in the assembly areas and strategic logistics facilities used by Russia were set on fire while trying to liberate occupied positions in the southern region where clashes were increasing. Millions of people are now looking forward to the latest developments in the southern region of Ukraine. While it was seen that many successes were achieved in the regional offensives carried out by the Ukrainian army, it was also known that the Russian troops suffered great losses. At this point, Ukraine, which has managed to liberate many places in the southern settlements, seems to have put the Russian army into a great difficulty in the statements made. According to statements made by the authorities, with the army system disrupted and strategic areas destroyed, Russian soldiers, in general, are trying to hold temporary occupation zones and carry out active defense missions. For this reason, it was also reported that the Russian army left many regions and fled to the borders of Russia, and Ukraine won in certain regions. Currently, while the counteroffensives carried out by the Ukrainian army were liberating many regions, it was also reported that inhuman attacks were coming from the Russian army. In the statements made last evening, it was stated that the Russian army bloodily and brazenly fired against Ukrainian positions during the night using existing means of destruction and carried out the attacks with MRL systems and artillery shells of various calibers in general. It was stated that heavy destruction occurred in the settlement of Shirokivska in the Mykolaiv region, especially due to heavy bombs used by the invading Russian soldiers. According to the information provided by some local newspapers, the balls dropped at the exact settlement points and landed in agricultural areas. This situation, which is a war crime, has also caused serious damage to life and property in the region. The Russian army, which has started to withdraw from the Ukrainian borders in recent days, has now turned its direction to important points such as Donetsk and Crimea. The Russian army, which says that it has temporarily occupied Crimea for some time, also continues its activities within the framework of the peninsula. At this point, temporarily occupied Crimea, including 3 large landing ships to the coast and a cruise missile submarine of the Russian army who brought the same number, 9, and a fleet of warships in the area, continues to perform various maneuvers with a group of choppers. Moreover, it is believed that there are 20 caliber missiles waiting in the Russian army in full combat readiness. It remains to be reported which areas Russian troops are continuing to attack. Now millions of people are being transported. Accordingly, in the information announced by Ukrinform, it was reported that a region that is important for Ukraine is under fire again. In a statement made by the company, it was stated that the settlement of Chervonovyhorivska in Nikopol and Dnipropetrovsk region was attacked by Russian troops using Grad MLR systems as a combat element. It was stated that an intense electrical damage occurred in the region, while there was no loss of life. This circumstance caused many countries to condemn the Russian army. Ukraine uses logistic software, through which every sample of weapons delivered by partners is checked. According to information provided to the news agency by Sergei Omolchenko, advisor to the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, the software is being used in cooperation with the United States and the United Kingdom. Ukraine uses a logistic software that prevents all samples of weapons from coming to the USA and the UK, Omolchenko said. He also added that the European Union has created an independent monitoring mechanism. At the same time, Ukraine controls all types of weapons and ammunition. Sergei Omolchenko added that first of all, information about the alleged sale of Western weapons by Russia is a special operation aimed at Ukraine. The previous day, it was heard that the U.S. Defense Criminal Investigative Service, DCIS, will intensify the monitoring of contracts agreed in favor of Ukraine through a fast-track procedure. CIS focuses on negotiations and the diversion of American aid to the black market. The service coordinates its activities with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other law enforcement agencies. Although the Pentagon and the State Department say they have found no evidence of improper weapons use in Ukraine, both agencies are working to strengthen security. Significantly, the Pentagon added, the United States and its partners emphasized the effectiveness of the use of weapons delivered to Ukraine, and thanks to the funds received, the Ukrainian Defense Forces continue to defend and repel previously occupied territories. The Ukrainian-Russian war, which has become one of the most discussed issues of recent years, was almost leaving mouths open with the different developments that have emerged now. February-September, the Russian attacks started to be faced by Ukraine, and Ukraine's counteroffensives began. Now, while new movements are continuing on the basis of Ukraine, it was also stated that many lands were taken from Russia along with aid from different countries. At this point, while the war preparations were in full swing, a new news came from the Ukrainian front. Ukraine has started adding new ones to its Starlink reserves. Here are all the curious details of the latest measures taken by Ukraine regarding the Russian war. Please do not forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to be informed of developments at the speed of light.